Good morning, students. We are back with P block elements. Under P block elements, we have seen the general electronic configuration. Under group 15 elements, we have seen the anomalous property of nitrogen, then preparation of ammonia, its uses. Under group 16 elements, we have seen the anomalous property of oxygen, then we saw sulfur, then we saw the preparation of sulfuric acid. Moving on to oxo acids of sulfur. Oxo acids of nitrogen and sulfur is not included for final exam, but let me just list out the name of oxy acids of sulfur. There are 6 to 8 oxy acids of sulfur, which includes sulfurous acid, sulfuric acid, then peroxy disulfuric acid, pyrosulfuric acid. See why it is peroxy disulfuric acid, H2S2O8. Okay, and the first one is sulfurous acid. Next is our gentle sulfuric acid, that is H2SO4. Third one is hydroxy peroxy disulfuric acid and pyrosulfuric acid. We have two more, that is thiosulfuric acid and polythionic acid. So these are the oxo acids of sulfur. Now moving on to group 17 elements. So we have only one group left, that is group 18 is alone left. We are moving to group 17 elements. So Fir, Kal, Bahar, Ai and T. So what are the elements which are coming under group 17? F for fluorine, then B for bromine, fluorine, bromine, then iodine, astatine. These all belongs to halogen family. So they are otherwise called as halogens. So under halogen family you have fluorine, chlorine, bromine, iodine, astatine. Okay, Fir, Kal, Bahar, Ai, Anti, astatine. So what is their general electronic configuration? Their general electronic configuration will be NS2NP5. Their general electronic configuration is NS2NP5. Now moving to the properties about the elements. Now we know from the beginning of class 11, we know that fluorine is more electronegative than even oxygen, which we have seen even in hydrogen bonding. Now coming to the elements, fluorine and chlorine are abundant comparatively to bromine and iodine. Okay, when you compare bromine and iodine, the existence of your fluorine and chlorine is more. This is the first property. Then how fluorine is present? It is present in its occurrence is of many forms, that is it can occur in the form of insoluble fluorides like fluorospar, cryolite and fluorapatite. So these are the three forms by which your fluorine is occurring. What are the three forms? Fluorospar, fluorapatite and cryolite. These are the three forms by which your fluorine is existing in insoluble form. Now how about in other existence like in soil, river, water plants, bones and teeth of the animals, also your fluorine is present in small quantities. Seawater, it not only contains chlorides, it too contains bromides and iodides of sodium, potassium, magnesium, calcium. But which is the main component present in the seawater? It is nothing but your sodium chloride. So this is about the occurrence of halogen. Your fluorine and chlorine is abundant comparative to bromine and iodine. And how your fluorine is present? It is present in three forms like fluorospar, fluorapatite and cryolite. And where and all it is present? It is also present in river, bones, etc. And seawater mainly contains sodium chloride. Apart from that, it has two bromides and iodides too, which are present in small quantities. Now this is about the electronic configuration. They all belong to group 17 elements and this is their period number, atomic number and how is their electronic configuration. This is about a tabular column. Now moving to the oxidation state. See, starting from your halogens, generally we know halogens will be exhibiting -1 oxidation state. Whenever we indicate chlorine, bromine, iodine, we will be indicating one minus in the suffix, right? To the power Cl minus, Br minus, I minus, like that. But apart from -1 oxidation state, they exist oxidation state between +3, +5, +7. Can you look into these examples where you might have seen 3 unpaired electrons? here 5 unpaired electrons and here 7 unpaired electron, which means they will be existing in +3, +7 and +5 oxidation state. So they have the oxidation state which is ranging between +3 to +7 oxidation state. Then moving to the reactivity. You know, they have a ready acceptance to accept an electron, which is the main reason for their electronegativity. We know fluorine is more electronegative than even oxygen, and when you compare all the halogen compounds here, fluorine is the strongest oxidizing halogen. It has the ability to oxidize other halide ions when they are present in the solution form or in the solid form. Now, when you just look into the general thing, a halogen can oxidize other halogen provided it should have higher atomic number. So halogen can oxidize other halides who is having higher atomic number. Say for example, your fluorine is oxidizing chlorine, bromine or iodide. Chlorine is able to oxidize bromide, iodide, and your bromide is able to oxidize iodide. So this is how the reactivity follows. They have the ability to oxidize other halogens. Probably they should be having higher atomic number. Say for example, fluorine can oxidize chlorine, bromine, iodine, while chlorine can oxidize bromine, iodide, and bromide can oxidize iodide. So this is how the reactivity follows. Now, how about their reaction with metals and non-metals? How halogen will be reacting with the metals and other non-metals? Say for example, see your bromide can react with the metal magnesium to form magnesium bromide. Similarly, this ionic character decreases from fluoride, chloride, bromide and iodide. This is an example for a halogen reacting with the metals. Now moving to hydrogen. See, all halogen have higher affinity to react with the hydrogen. As a result, they will be forming hydrogen halides. So halogen reacts with hydrogen to form hydrogen halides. Now this hydrogen halide dissolves in water to form hydrohalic acid. Okay. Once hydrogen halides are formed, they dissolve in water. As a result, I will be getting hydrohalic acid. Okay, I am getting hydrohalic acid. How about with oxygen? I have reactions at the back. So how about the reaction with oxygen? As you all know, halogen reacts with oxygen to form oxides. Correct. Say for example, fluorine can form two oxides. One with one oxygen, that is monooxygen, and one with the two oxygen, that is dioxygen. But which is stable? This OF2 is only stable. They are able to form oxides, but those oxides are unstable. Say for example, fluorine can form two forms of oxide, one with monooxygen and other with dioxygen, and monooxygen is comparatively stable. And you know, these oxides are essentially oxygen fluorides because they have high electronegativity because of electronegativity of fluorine, which is more than that of oxygen. So these are strong fluorinating agents. So under the formation of oxides, we have seen oxides of fluorine. They are nothing but fluorinating agents because you know fluorine is more electronegative than your oxygen. Now this is about oxides. As we have already discussed, their oxidation state is ranging from +1 to +7 oxidation state. A lot of factors are responsible for the instability of these oxides formed by halogens. Say for example, higher oxides of halogens are more stable than the lower oxides. So oxides which are formed from higher halogens, they are more stable compared to the lower ones. Now see the example chlorine oxides. As I told you, it is able to form with monooxygen, dioxygen, then 6 oxygen, 7 oxygen. So this is said to be highly reactive oxidizing agent and tend to explode. When you see this dioxygen, that is ClO2, this is said to be a bleaching agent which is used for wood and pulp textile industry as well as in the water treatment. So this is about the use of oxides of halogen. So ClO2 is used as bleaching agent for paper pulp as well as in textile industry as well as in the water treatment. Now moving to bromine oxides, as I have told you, see bromine is able to form oxide with monooxygen, dioxygen, trioxygen, and they are least stable halogen oxides because they will come under the middle row. and they exist only at low temperatures, but still they are powerful oxidizing agents. Moving to iodine oxides, see, iodine is forming with the 4 oxygen, 5 oxygen, 7 oxygen. They all are insoluble solids, so they'll be decomposed when heated. And your 5, that is iodine pentoxide, is a very good oxidizing agent, and it is used in the estimation of carbon monoxide. It is used to estimate the presence of carbon monoxide. Now, as we have already discussed, halogens have the ability to react with other halogens. Similarly, see, when halogen combine among themselves, they form number of compounds. They are called as interhalogens, and their configuration is like that. See, when you look into X7, this is a large size halogen, while X dash is a small size halogen. We have already discussed they have the ability to react with the halogens of higher atomic number. Say for example, fluorine can react with chlorine, bromine, iodine. We have seen the 3 tableau column. This is about that. And among the halogen compounds, your fluorine is said to be anomalous. Its property is anomalous. So what are the differences which your fluorine is possessing compared to other elements of that particular group 17? Now, when you look into ionization enthalpy, electronegativity, electrode potential, these is all higher for fluorine when you compare other halogens. Now, when you look into ionic character, covalent radii, melting point, boiling point, bond dissociation energy, electron gain enthalpy, this is all or low in fluorine compared to other elements. Now, the main anomalous behavior of fluorine is because of its small size, high electronegativity, FF bond dissociation enthalpy, and there is no any d orbital in the valence shell. So these are the properties which makes fluorine exceptional. It is very small in size, no electrons in the d orbital, and its FF bond dissociation enthalpy is very low, and it has got high electronegativity. This is nothing but your anomalous property of fluorine. Now, moving to the other reaction, like most of the reactions of fluorine is said to be exothermic, while with other halogens it is said to be endothermic reactions. And it forms only one oxo acid, while other halogens are able to form number of oxo acids, which we have discussed in the first slide. That is sulfurous, sulfuric acid, then peroxidized acid, yes, no, thionic acid, like that. So your fluorine alone is able to form only one oxo acid, while all other elements are able to form more oxo acids. Now, hydrogen fluoride is a liquid due to strong hydrogen bonding, while all hydrogen halides are gases. So we saw about interhalogen compounds, like how they are able to form, able to react with other halogens having higher atomic number. In that hydrogen fluoride, that is HF, is a liquid comparatively, while all other hydrogen halides from other halogens are said to be gases. And this is about chlorine. Your chlorine was discovered by Schill by the action of HCl on manganese dioxide. Reaction we'll be seeing in the next slide. So when HCl react with manganese dioxide, you will be getting chlorine. Later, 1810, Davy established its how it is element. So he established its elementary nature, and he suggested the name chlorine based on the Greek thing, which means greenish yellow in color. And how to prepare? There are two ways by which chlorine can be prepared. The first way, which we discussed in the slide 1, that is the reaction of HCl with MnO2. See, HCl with MnO2 gives MnCl2, Cl2 plus 2 water molecule. Second is when you make potassium permanganate to react with HCl, you will be getting elementary chlorine. So the two reactions by which chlorine can be produced will be reaction of MnO2 with HCl and KMnO4 with HCl. So these are the two reactions by which chlorine can be produced. Now this is about the large scale manufacturing of chlorine. The first one is Deccan's process, where hydrogen chloride gas is oxidized by atmospheric oxygen in the presence of copper chloride as a catalyst at 723 Kelvin. So industrial production of chlorine, the first step will be Deccan's process. Here what you are doing, you are oxidizing HCl gas with atmospheric oxygen. You need a catalyst copper chloride at the particular temperature, that is 723 Kelvin. Now second method is electrolytic process. Here you need to take brine solution, which is nothing but concentrated sodium chloride solution, where as per when you switch on the current, electrolysis happens and chlorine will be deposited at the anode. It is obtained as a byproduct in many chemical industries. So apart from this to manufacture, you are getting chloride in many industrial process as a byproduct. So about the manufacture of chlorine, we have Deccan's process, and number 2 is by electrolysis, and number 3, it is produced as a byproduct in many industrial process. Now what properties your chlorine gas is having? See, it is a greenish yellow gas. It is having a pungent suffocating odor. Almost the pungent smell is same for this one as well as for sulfuric acid, but here it has suffocating odor. Now it is heavier than air. You can easily liquefy it because you are getting greenish yellow gas which boils at 239 Kelvin, and it can be easily liquefied into greenish yellow color liquid. It is soluble in water. Now moving to the reaction of chlorine with metals, it's all direct reaction. With aluminium, it forms aluminium trichloride. With sodium, it forms sodium chloride. With iron, it forms ferric chloride. With phosphorus, it forms phosphorus trichloride. With sulfur, it forms sulfur chloride. So because this slide we have already seen, it has a greater affinity for hydrogen. So it reacts with compounds containing hydrogen. What happens? One H will be replaced. There will be a substitution kind of reaction. See the reaction here. Chlorine is reacting with hydrogen, where in 2H it is involved in the production of HCl. Now moving to the next reaction, see, when chlorine reacts with H2S, you got HCl. When chlorine reacts with C10H16, you got HCl. So when hydrogen and chloride reacts, compulsory end product is HCl. Now this is an important reaction. When my chlorine is reacting with excess of ammonia, I get ammonium chloride. Now when ammonia is treated with excess of chloride, I got nitrogen trichloride, which is nothing but an explosives. I am repeating this step. Chloride reacting with excess of ammonia. What you will get? You will be getting ammonium chloride. Now ammonia, when reacted with excess of chlorine, you will be getting NCl3, that is nitrogen trichloride, which is used as an explosive. Now with now we have seen the action with hydrogen, with oxygen, with hydrogen, how they formed halide, how your hydrogen halides when dissolved in water, how they form hydrohalogenic acid. Okay, and moving to NaOH, that is moving with the action of alkalis. First it is treated with cold and dilute NaOH. It is treated with cold and dilute NaOH. So chlorine, upon reaction with cold and dilute NaOH, you are getting NaCl and chlorate, that is sodium hypochlorate, NaOCl, sodium hypochlorate plus water. Now when it is treated with hot and concentrated alkali, what happens? So the second reaction is chlorine reacted with hot and concentrated NaOH. So here the product will be sodium chloride and NaClO3 plus water. Okay. So with the concentrated thing, it gives chloride and chlorate. Okay. With concentrated and hot acid, it is giving chloride and chlorate. With the dilute and cold alkalis, it is giving chloride and hypochlorite. Okay. Chloride, hypochlorite with cold dilute alkalis. With hot concentrated alkalis, it is giving chloride and chlorates. Done. Now the last reaction is with the slaked lime, which is nothing but calcium hydroxide. So with calcium hydroxide, it is giving bleaching powder, which is nothing but CaOCl2. Okay. So it gives bleaching powder. Now it is a strong oxidizing agent, as we all know. So it is able to oxidize iron from ferrous to ferric. Then it can oxidize sulfite SO3 to sulfate SO4. Then SO2 to sulfuric acid. Then iodine to iodic acid. This is the reaction of chloride, which is nothing but a strong oxidizing agent. So what it has oxidized? It has oxidized iron from Fe 3 plus to Fe2 plus to Fe3 plus, ferrous to ferric state, Fe2 plus to Fe3 plus, which is nothing but first step. Second step, it has oxidized sulfite SO3, sodium sulfite to sodium sulfate, which is nothing but SO4. Then it has oxidized sulfur dioxide to sulfuric acid. It has oxidized iodine to iodic acid. Now, chloride also have the ability to react with hydrocarbons. Now it has reacted with the methane. So what happens? A mere substitution happened. Your chloride group is going to attach with one of the H. So I got methyl chloride. In the second reaction, I have ethane where my chloride is reacting. So here I got in two positions my chlorine is attached. So 1,2-dichloroethane. So it has the ability to react with hydrocarbons to give me unsaturated hydrocarbons. Now about the uses, we have seen it is used as a bleaching agent in wood pulp. It's used in textile industry. So which is used for the manufacturing of paper and rayon. It is also used for bleaching cotton and the textile industry. Now it is also used in extracting gold and platinum in the manufacture of dyes, drugs, organic compounds like DDT, CCl4, then CHCl3, etc. It is also used as an refrigerant, we all know. It is used in sterilizing drinking water. As we have already seen, it's used in water treatment, and it is used to produce poisonous gases like phosgene, tear gas and mustard gas. So we have seen the anomalous property of fluorine. Then we have seen about chlorine, its reaction, its uses. Moving to HCl, as we have under group 16 we saw the production of HCl. Similarly, under group 17 we are looking into the preparation of HCl, where the scientist Glauber, he prepared HCl in 1648. How he prepared? He heated sodium chloride salt along with concentrated sulfuric acid. He got HCl. After which Davy, scientist, in 1810, he showed that it's a compound of hydrogen and chlorine. Now the real preparation, how we'll prepare in the laboratory, when you treat sodium chloride with concentrated sulfuric acid, you will be getting sodium hydrogen sulfate plus HCl. Now this sodium hydrogen sulfate is again treated with sodium chloride. In the temperature 323 Kelvin, you will be getting sodium sulfate and HCl. Now coming to the properties, it is colorless, pungent smelling gas, where it can also be easily liquefied. How we liquefied chlorine, which is nothing but a greenish yellow gas, which was liquefied to greenish yellow color liquid. Similarly, your HCl can also be liquefied to a colorless liquid at that particular temperature. When you freeze it, it freezes to white crystalline solid. Now it has the ability to get solubilized because of hydrogen bonding. It is soluble in water. It is ionizing like this. That is HCl. When solubilized in water, we will be getting H3O plus Cl minus. Now what happens when it reacts with ammonia? When HCl reacts with ammonia, you will be getting ammonium chloride. So white fumes of ammonium chloride will be produced. Now, how to prepare aqua regia? So aqua regia is prepared by treating 3 parts of concentrated HCl and 1 part of concentrated nitric acid. So when you mix 3 parts of concentrated HCl along with 1 part of concentrated nitric acid, I will be getting aqua regia. See, this aqua regia is used to dissolve with the noble metals like gold, platinum, etc. So what is aqua regia's composition? 3 parts of concentrated HCl and 1 part of concentrated nitric acid, which is used to dissolve noble metals like gold, platinum, etc. And we know hydrochloric acid has the ability to dissolve salts of weaker acid like carbonates, hydrogen carbonates, sulfide, etc. So how it is decomposing? See, HCl when treated with sodium carbonate, what you got? Sodium chloride, water and carbon dioxide. Now second reaction is with sodium hydrogen carbonate. You have sodium chloride, water, carbon dioxide. Now the third reaction is with sodium sulfate, where you have got sodium chloride and water. Instead of carbon dioxide, here since it is sulfate involved, you will be getting sulfur dioxide. So now what is the uses of HCl? So HCl is used in the manufacture of chlorine. It is used to produce ammonium chloride. It is used to produce glucose from cornstarch. Then it is used for extracting glue from bones. It is used for purifying bone black. It's used in medicine. It is used as a laboratory reagent. So interhalogen compounds, which part which we have already seen, where your halogen is going to react with the other halogen to form interhalogen compounds. Say for example, I am going to designate their property as, I am going to designate the interhalogen compounds as XX dash, XX3 dash, XX5 dash, XX7 dash. Why? Because their oxidation state is existing between +1 to +7. Now X is indicating halogen of large size, X dash is going to indicate small size, and X it is also, this since I'm indicating X dash as smaller size, it is electropositive than my X. See, this is an example: chloride, fluoride, bromide, fluoride, bromide, chloride, iodide, chloride, iodide, bromide. This is all example for AX. Now how about AX3? Chloride, trifluoride, bromide, trifluoride, iodide, trichloride. Now this is X5, that is oxidation status +5, where bromide, pentafluoride, iodide, pentafluoride. Now this is iodide, this is heptafluoride, iodide, heptafluoride. So this is about the interhalogen compounds. So how to prepare interhalogen compounds? See, interhalogen compounds can be prepared when you just combine the halogen with lower interhalogen compounds. You need to combine halogen with lower interhalogen compounds. Let me cite you an example. I have taken equal volume of chlorine and equal volume of fluorine at the temperature 437 Kelvin. So I got a compound chloride fluoride. Correct. Now iodide, when reacts with excess of chlorine, I'll be getting iodine trichloride because excess of chloride. Look into the second reaction. I have chloride, I have excess of fluorine here, so I got chloride trifluoride. Whatever is excess, that will be having the higher oxidation state. Here bromide and fluoride both are in 2,2 and I am diluting with water. I got bromide trifluoride. Moving to the last reaction, I have equivalent amount of iodine and chloride, so I got ICl, iodine chloride. Now look into the reaction where I have taken bromide as well as fluoride. Fluoride is excess here, so I got bromide pentafluoride. Now, so when I am talking about interhalogen compounds, they are all covalent molecules linked by means of covalent bonds. They are diamagnetic in nature. What is the difference between diamagnetic and paramagnetic? Hope you all know. It is about the difference between paramagnetic and diamagnetic will be based on the number of unpaired electron, whether there is a presence of unpaired electron or no. Now the second property is all are volatile solids and liquids at 298 Kelvin except your chloride fluoride, which is existing as a gas. Now when you look into the physical property, the physical property of interhalogen compound is existing as intermediate between your halogen. What is the only exception is their melting point and boiling point will be little higher than the expected halogens. When you look into the general physical properties, it is intermediate between halogens, but melting point and the boiling point of interhalogen compounds is quite high compared to normal halogen compounds. Now when you their chemical reaction that can be compared with individual halogens. So in general, interhalogen compounds are more reactive than halogen compounds. So interhalogen compounds are more reactive than halogen compounds. But one exceptional feature here is fluorine is always more reactive. The exceptional one, fluorine is more reactive. Why interhalogen compounds are reactive than halogen compounds? This is because the XX dash bond in interhalogen is weaker, but in case of halogen it is more. But in case of fluoride, the excess bond in halogens will be changed. See, why interhalogen compounds are more reactive than halogen except fluorine? This is because the XX dash band in interhalogen is weaker than XX bond in halogen except in case of FF. That's the reason why fluorine is coming under exception. It's more reactive than interhalogen compounds. Then if they undergo hydrolysis giving halide ion, which is derived from small halogen and hypohalite. See the reaction XX dash plus water gives HX dash plus HOX. This is nothing but your hypohalide, and that is nothing but your small halogen compound. This is the interhalogen compound of chlorine and trichlorine, trifluoride, and iodine, which is nothing but 7, no? So iodine heptafluoride. And what are the uses of interhalogen compounds? These interhalogen compounds can be used as non-aqueous solvents, and they are very useful as fluorinating agents, which we have seen in the previous slide, not the immediate previous. When you look into trifluoride, that is chloride trifluoride and bromide trifluoride, they will be used in the production of UF6, that is uranium, which is used in the enrichment of uranium-235. Okay, it is used in the production of uranium hexafluoride. Then oxoacids of halogen, as I have discussed with you, this won't be there in the final exam, where I can list out the names which we have already seen with the sulfur. So this is hypochlorous acid and chlorous acid, chloric acid, perchloric acid. I am repeating: hypochlorous acid, chlorous acid, chloric acid, perchloric acid. How we saw 6, no? Similarly. So the last topic which we will be stopping with, that will be group 18. So under P block elements we have seen group 15. So important, which you have to study: anomalous behavior of nitrogen and the preparation of ammonia by Haber's process, its uses. Done. Now coming to group 16, you have to give importance to oxygen, sulfur. Just try to list out the name of oxoacids. Then reaction of sulfuric acid, that is also important. So group 15, group 16. Now under group 17, we have seen about halogens, where fluorine is the exceptional character, and we have given special importance to chlorine. And try to remember the oxoacids of sulfur and oxoacids of chlorine. So group 18 elements, which are nothing but noble gases, we will be discussing it in the next session. Thank you, children.